Hey everybody, welcome back. This is the third video that you will be watching as part of your orientation session for this week. And I am very excited that I am joined by two wonderful colleagues today. And so I want to introduce both my colleagues, and I'll actually turn the mic over to them so that they can introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what they do on campus and a little bit of who they are. So Antoine, do you want to get us started?
Sure. Hello, everyone. For those of you watching, thanks for tuning in. Please stick around for the entire video. So my name is Antoine Harper, and I am the Assistant Director for Student Leadership Programs with the Office of Campus Activities. And so basically that is my role on campus. I program a lot of the leadership services, programs. I'm the leadership resource guy on campus, if you will. So we have things like the Cultural Leadership Retreat, which is done in conjunction with Javier and the Center for Cultural Engagement. And we have the Cardinal Leadership Celebration, which is more of our leadership award ceremony. And we have the Leadership Conference, which is kind of like a day-long, more business style, more serious kind of a leadership initiative, whereas our retreat is more laid back. But both are very interactive and fun. So yeah, and I do like smaller programs throughout the semester. So if you're ever looking to get involved in leadership, just visit me in the Prisbilla Center, office 202, and we can help you out.
Awesome.
And I'm excited to be here.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, cut you off there.
I was saying I'm excited to be on this call.
Awesome. Thanks, Antoine. And now we'll turn it over to our colleague, Amrit.
My name is Amrit Obermuller. I am the International Student Scholar Advisor here at Catholic University. I work mainly with international students that are on F and J1 visas that come to the United States. I help them with their immigration documents, and then also once they're here, I help them to integrate into American culture and what it's like to be in an American university.
Thank you both. That was awesome to get to work with you on this project. Everybody, you know me, Javier Bustamante. This is the third time you've seen me on these videos. So let's get going with our conversation. And before we jump in, I want to share this video of Father Jude. You saw him in the previous video as well. So we want to pick back up on this interview we did with him and listen in, and then we'll move in and have some more conversation with our panelists here. So let me cue this up.
I think it's important for our students to engage with other people of different backgrounds and cultures because we live in such a compact world, a world that is a lot smaller than I grew up in. When I was younger, people going to Europe, that was a big deal. Now people can get cheap flights to Europe, and the same coming to the United States. So our world is much smaller, and we need to understand that in order to be a person of this world, as well as a good person of the kingdom of God, we need to understand one another. And so for us to engage in conversations about culture and about family experience in each culture, how we grew up, what are the customs that we bring, only enriches us. And also it's really important if we're members of the Catholic Church, because we are universal. And each person's culture and each person's identity is represented in the body of Christ. That makes us all brothers and sisters. And what is a real brother and sister if not someone who understands the other person and learns to love them? So of course, for our students to engage in the discovery of another culture, another society, another set of customs and traditions can only bring about a better kingdom of God in this world that we live in.
So now let's break this open a little bit. If I'm going to ask each of our presenters if you could share about an experience of meeting someone from a different culture than yours and how that impacted you or changed you, perhaps. I'm going to let Amrit answer first.
Yeah, I can remember distinctly the first time that I met someone from a different culture. I grew up in Kansas, which I grew up in a predominantly white area, so there wasn't a lot of individuals of different races, different cultures. It was mainly just individuals from Kansas. So the first time that I ever met anyone from a different culture was when I started my first job at 16. I worked at Chuck E. Cheese, and most of the individuals that I worked with were from Mexico. And that, I didn't realize it then, but that completely changed my future and what my life was going to look like, because from that moment I was so fascinated by the language, for one, and then even further beyond language, how language incorporates the culture. So I was so fascinated by how open in general the Spanish speaking culture is, which was very different from the culture that I grew up in, that was a little more closed and not so laid back. And so I was fascinated by that. And from then I just became extremely interested in other language and other cultures, to where now I work primarily with individuals that are from other countries. And so that first moment that I met someone, it absolutely shaped the way that I wanted my future to be. And I think me as a person, because I think with meeting someone from a different culture and then intentionally trying to meet other people from around the world, I think my understanding of the world and my patience with individuals in general has grown a lot because of that.
Thanks, Amran. And Antoine?
Yes. So I think when I was thinking about this question, I went back to actually my time when I was in college a couple of years ago, 2015, during my senior year of college. And I was a part of Frostburg State University's version of the President's Council, or that Catholic University has, and ours was called President's Leadership Circle. And so there were these top 12 students of the university, and I ended up being one of the top 12. And so we were considered the top 12 student leaders on campus. And one of the parts of the experience of this year-long academic experience was to go on a cross-cultural trip. And so it was either to Uganda or India, and I decided to go to India. And I think before I even left for the trip, I was very nervous because I knew I was going to, this is my first time out of the country, but I just knew I was going into another country that had a totally different set of just cultural ways of being and interacting and things of that nature. And what I didn't want to happen is something that I don't think maybe a lot of people think about before they go. And that's not to brag about myself, but it was just, I didn't want to get into India and then have a culture shock experience. And I wanted to go in with the mindset of this is something different from myself and from what I'm used to. And I don't want to go there and block myself off to these experiences, because when I interact with something for the first time, I immediately shut down. Because it's like, I want to take this experience for what it is. And I think that is what I had various people at the university just kind of talk to me and just say, you know what, just keep that mindset. And, you know, they gave me information of their experiences that when they went to India, and like, these are things, you know, that you'll encounter, things to think about. And so when I went into the experience, I was fully ready to understand, like, look, once you step off of that airplane into that airport, you're not at home. And so you're not in your safe space anymore, where you know, and you're not in your own culture anymore. You're in someone else's culture. So you have to give into that. And so in meeting someone from a different culture, I would say our tour guide, her name was Poonam, and I think she was one of those people that she did change my perspective a lot, and it was for the better. And I met when we went to Dharamsala, we had these I guess these buddies of ours. Like, they had kind of like a system where we got paired up with someone from the Law Charitable Trust that worked at this center, the Law Charitable Trust Fund, and they kind of were our buddies for the week. And my buddy, his name was Tearing, and he definitely taught me a lot about his culture. And he was someone who had escaped from Tibet into Dharamsala, and just learning about his experiences and his culture and his perspectives, it just opened me up to there's a lot going on, you know, in the world around me, which I already knew, but it was just refreshing to be able to understand, like, there is a lot going on in the world around me. And that even as a young Black man in America, I am very privileged to have certain things and to be able to move in certain ways that you know, other people cannot, or that other people have not been able to move in yet. And so I think what happened was when I went over there, it made me feel better about, you know, my culture and being very appreciative of where I came from. But then I felt so much more appreciative of being able to experience someone else's culture and them taking me in and really immersing me in the experience and just like welcoming me into their culture. And the people of India are very welcoming in everything that they do, and they treat you like family. And so that was something that I really enjoyed about that. And I guess that is something that kind of changed my perspective. Well, not changed it, but I guess enhanced it, is when I meet people, no matter what culture they're from, I try to make sure I just treat them as a human. And I just want them to know, like, they're loved, even if I just met them for like 1 second ago. I just try to be the best person I can towards them, and to just receive them in as much love as possible.
Awesome. Thank you both. And I think it's important to, you know, highlight the fact that, you know, when you meet somebody from another person, as we've been saying in these videos, is that, you know, it changes you, right? And hopefully it makes you a better person. So the next question, you know, what is needed to engage or communicate with people of different cultures? Because there are a lot of different obstacles, right, to intercultural relationships. But so what do we need to engage and communicate with people of different cultures? This time we'll start with you, Antoine.
Okay, so I wrote these down ahead of time because I was like, I don't want to forget my train of thought. I said I was looking at a model of the intercultural sensitivity. We used it last year during our cultural leadership retreat. And I was going back over that, and some points definitely stuck out to me. So I think what's needed to engage and communicate with people of different cultures is, one, a viewpoint that is void of thinking that your perspectives and your values and your views are the chief values, views, and perspectives. And that one that accepts and understands that there's great value in differences. And I think that is something, like, going back to the story about going to India, that was kind of the perspective I had, is that my culture, my values, my perspectives, they're not the chief thing. They're not universal. So I think that's one thing that is very much needed, is that when you're going to engage with someone who's different than you, you have to respect the fact that they are different from you. So you have to kind of let go of it, and it's not saying you have to abandon your values and abandon your perspective, but you should be willing to go into that experience, or you just engaging with somebody, encountering someone, willing to understand who they are and understand that they are different from you. And I said that to a group of students recently: is everybody wasn't raised the same. Everybody's normal is not your normal, and so you can't interact with someone. It's like telling someone, why don't you just act normal? But my normal is not your normal, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. And so it's, why don't you just get on my page for once, you know, and be more respectful of other people's perspectives. And I think when we do that, understanding also, like, people's values motivate their actions. And so, and I mean, and I guess for this conversation, we're talking about those values that are good for building good humans and good understanding of other people. And so I think having that perspective in mind, when you interact with someone and you see they do things differently than you, go back to their values as well. Go to their values, understand their values, and don't take it from this perspective of your values. And I think I said, what else did I say? I'm sorry. Being able to experience others as different from themselves, but equally human. So understanding, again, that, you know, this person is different from me, but they are still a human being.
Awesome. Thank you, Antoine. Amran, do you want to add some things to that?
The first thing would be the willingness to hear. I think communication is the most important thing, because a lot of times as individuals, we already have this preconceived notion of what someone is, just based on what they look like, but by your own experience. And I think the number one thing to remember is that who you're speaking to in general, their experience in life and the way that they think, their thought process is completely different from yours. So I think recognizing that, taking the time to actually listen to what someone has to say, the willingness to hear it, and then I would say patience, because a lot of times someone that's different can be a little hard to understand, and it's just having that patience and willingness to be able to hear them. Kindness can go a long way. When speaking with someone, especially if you're, let's say it's in someone that speaks a second language, just going really slow and letting the person know, like having kind tone of voice is really important. Just letting the other person know that you're here and you're willing to listen. In my own experience, every day that I speak to international students, I have to take things slow and just really have the patience to hear what they have to say and not try to jump to conclusions of what I think they're trying to say, because a lot of times it's completely different.
Well, thank you both. And you know, let's take one final question here, and let's talk about you know, thinking of our incoming freshmen as students. What can they do to help build a more inclusive campus environment? We'll let Amran take the lead on this one, and then we'll go back to you, Antoine.
I would say that for students at CUA to make other students that are coming to feel more welcome on campus, I would say the number one thing would be to talk to others. A lot of times, specifically with international students, it's a new country, most of the time a new language, and so they might be a little shy to talk to you in your class or see you on campus. So I would say the first thing to do would just open up a conversation with someone. How are you? Where are you from? Anything would be a good start. And then CUA has a lot of events that we do on campus, and it is a great way to learn about where other students come from, their culture, what country they come from, language. In particular, there's always International Week that we do, and then Global Fest. I would say if you're really wanting to meet other people from around the world, those are excellent events to attend that are put on by our offices that can absolutely help you learn about other cultures, which will in turn, the more that you understand and you know about other cultures, the more that you can talk to them and accept them and get to know their ways. But number one, just talk to someone and have the willingness to just listen to what they say and where they're from, and then go from there.
Thank you, Amran. Antoine, do you want to add to that?
Sure. So how can students help to build a more inclusive campus environment? I think for students, what you all can do is to understand that you're coming into a place, and that place is called college. And so there it is right there, point blank and period. You're going to automatically, from the moment you step on campus, interact with people who are different from you. And so it's a nice way of saying you have to get used to it. If you aren't already used to it, you have to, because from here on out, from college on out, if you are going to be a functioning person in today's society, especially, you have to understand that there are going to be people from now on that you will interact with that are different from who you are. And if you don't understand that, and if you don't learn that in college, then the road ahead will not be as forgiving, and it will be a little bit more harder for you to kind of navigate that world around you. And I think you're going to encounter those problems where you want people to understand you, but you can't understand why they don't want to understand you. And it'll go back to, well, you have to have that respect to want to understand them as well. I think that so students can help build a more inclusive campus environment by, one, understanding that that's what college is. It's going to be, it's a place where it's supposed to be inclusive. And I guess I think, again, it goes back to coming in and being ready to just have your perspective shifted for the better and changed for the better. So when you come in, just come in ready to interact, come in ready to meet people, push yourself out of your comfort zone, go to Black Student Alliance events, go to the Center for Cultural Engagement, just interact with people who are different from you, period. Whether they are the same skin color as you, but just come from a different way of life, interact with them, learn about people, take courses that, and I wish that I did more of this when I was in college, take courses that are about different cultures and that educate you on the ways of different cultures. And that'll help you to build a more inclusive environment. So I guess for students, it starts with you. And this is your college experience. So you should want to make the best of it. I said to a student group recently, if you're coming into college and you're not shifting your perspective and growing, especially when it comes to cultural competency and cultural sensitivity, are you actually doing it correctly? So are you just here to learn and that's it, and to get yourself ahead, or are you actually here to grow as a person? Because there's the classroom part, but then there also is the social aspect, and learning happens in both of those areas. And the best learning comes outside of the classroom too. This is just me being biased for being campus activities, but the best learning comes inside of the classroom as well. But I think you get some of the greater life lessons outside, because you get to apply that knowledge now that you gain in a more practical setting. So.
Well said, friends. Well said. So I want to thank my friends Antoine and Amran again for joining in this conversation. I appreciate you guys, and we're excited to welcome all the incoming freshmen, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Thanks, guys.
Welcome. Thanks, Javier.
Thank you.